So, solutions without account of honest human nature are not solutions. What do I mean by this? Well, before I get into that, let's provide some context and some terminology for this discussion. Biggest bit of human nature to me is moral versus immoral. So, moral person with a gun, for example, uses it in the defense of themselves and others. Immoral person with a gun uses it to rob people, kill people, etc. Moral person, when it comes to law, uses the law to achieve some sense of justice. It's not personal, it's not an agenda, it is to protect all. Immoral person concerning laws, they will use law to target opponents, destroy them. And a third example, moral person concerning religion will use their chosen religion and texts in order to do the utmost good for all. Whereas the immoral person using religion will use and twist and distort text in order to justify things that probably shouldn't be justified to begin with. So, now that we have a context, some terminology, examples, again, concerning the idea of solutions not being solutions. We have Democrats, and of course, they think that people should be, the most vulnerable protected. I would contend and suggest that the majority of people on this planet believe that those that are challenged, those that are uh, experiencing hardship, should have some means and mechanisms that exist in order to help give them a hand up. The problem is, again, this ideology and rhetoric seems to often ignore the fact that a moral person in that situation does their best and utmost in order to get past whatever the challenge is and become a self-sustaining person again. Or the immoral find ways to game the system and take advantage of it. Okay, so there's just one example of, again, a political party that uh, bases their solutions on a utopian world that does not exist. Republicans, they believe in the whole idea of capitalism and free market. And again, this is somewhat devoid of the idea that a moral business will do things in the utmost ways to not only elevate their profit, but they also have a consideration for the other various stakeholders involved, the community, their employees, their customers. The immoral company, corporation, whatever, does things to maximize profit above all else, and they pretty much don't care about any of that other stuff. They don't care what they got to do to, their employees to make that happen. They don't care what they do to the community. They don't care what they do to the environment. Again, utopian world that does not exist because of human nature. Then we have socialism and communism, and those that believe that that's the answer. And I'm going to leave it at Marx himself said the aims of socialism and communism. So I kind of throw them into the same boat. I understand that some of the ideologies are definitely different, but when you look at the idea and you look at today, democratic socialists, it's all a push towards people accepting that communism. And one suggests that, democratic socialism, to my understanding, suggests that, elected leadership makes the decision in different things. And again, an elected leadership, the moral one does what's for the best of all, and it does what's best for the constituents. The immoral does things to obtain and gain and more or less enrich themselves and obtain more and more power. It goes from the moral side of doing what's right for all and to doing what's right for oneself on the immoral side. So that doesn't work there either. It doesn't work in communism. Again, it doesn't work in the socialism, because even if the companies and the producers had control of things, again, we're still back to a situation where, again, with business and corporations mentioned before, when it comes to the Republican stuff, it's the same thing. You're going to have people, and they're going to be good people and they're going to be bad people, and that's always going to be a thing. It's human nature. It is a conscious choice. It is a decision. It is the difference between working hard and, not taking advantage of people versus doing whatever you got to do to get yours. And if you got to hold a gun to somebody's head, or, you have to trample employees, or if you have to steal from your neighbor, you get the idea. And then the other example, anarchism. They believe in self-rule, and that's great for those that can rule themselves. What about people that can't? What about the most vulnerable? Again, moral. If we had a utopian moral world where people did what was right, we stuck together, we looked after our own, we took an interest in our communities, tried to take care of one another and our neighbors, and that's one thing. That's the moral side. The immoral side is the people that just don't give a crap for anything but their own or themselves. So all of them, they all require a utopian world that doesn't exist, and they largely all ignore moral versus immoral. And you can't legislate that. You can't, no way to breed it, and it shouldn't be to begin with, because that takes choice away from people and it takes freedom away. Two things, in my opinion, which are immoral, not moral. So all these different supposed solutions, at the end of the day, pretty much fall down to a mob rule mentality. It's a suggestion that the majority dictates to the rest. So, if the majority decides that that bike that you bought and paid for, they want to let other people in the neighborhood use it, although you're the one that's, gave up your time, your sweat and labor to obtain it yourself. If the majority thinks that other people in your neighborhood should be able to use your bike, well, that's the way it's going to go. Again, it's not freedom. Um, and it is sorry to say, piss poor excuse. In a really bad way, in my opinion, to try to make sure that things are done in some pseudo-moral way. So, when you have this mob rule, they usually end up using, fear, coercion, manipulation, bullying, propaganda, rhetoric, uh, taboo labels, and character assassinations from authority in order to control, hide, censor opposing views. So in that, they wind up, we see today with the left-leaning media, because it really doesn't seem to be much leaning towards the right at all. It pretty much is drowning out the conservative, the right. And I see this as a particularly dangerous thing, because when you have that kind of an echo chamber, and I've talked about this in another video, where through censorship, people are led to believe that they are in the majority. It's not a good thing. When you start censoring ideas, when you start using propaganda and rhetoric to push, you are robbing the people of free will. Now, some will argue, people can dig deeper in order to find some of the information that's not readily available or not the information that's not being presented. But at the same point in time, you have so many people because of the world we live in today that don't even realize they need to. So if you don't even realize that you need to, you're not going to. And this is the false narratives that they put into place pushing agendas. And it really is, to me, and what I see and what I look at, it's more about control than anything. It's not about freedom. Um, Most people are not even aware of our Constitution and our rights and everything else because it's not taught, and most people don't even think to go look at it. Not good. So you have the opposing views being silenced, which ends up presenting, and I've already talked about the left liberal control. And to me, in looking at it, it's almost like if you're not a minority or some supposedly suppressed group, you don't matter. And I mean, we have firefighters in California that have lost their homes. And instead of taking care of our own and people that are in genuine need concerning stuff like that, we have stars that are trying to raise money for immigrants at the south border, threatening and everything, trying to get in. They want to send billions of dollars annually to Israel. And anybody that has taken some time to even look at recent photos over there and some of the cities, why the hell do they need like $11 million a day? I mean, if you look at their cities, they're developed. They have their own systems. For what? So many people want to complain about the idea of, better health care, and, some are talking about the homeless and vets homeless and kids that aren't getting what they need. But, I mean, 11 million a day, what could that do here for all of those issues that people are complaining about? Everything I see around is pretty much social engineering with a cultural Marxist blueprint. And if you don't know about Gramsci and the prison notebooks, you need to look into it. If you have not read The Naked Communist by Cleon Skousen, you might want to consider it. If you do not know the 42 Communist Goals for America, again, you might want to look into it. That's part of Skousen's book. It is also a part of Congressional Record. More or less with all this and this social engineering and stuff, politically correct is the cudgel of the minority to beat the majority into submission. Come on, do you really believe that there's that many people out there that thought that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was racist? Or that baby it's cold outside was an issue? Look at some of the asinine, come on, with the problems this nation has, with the homeless vets, with the kids and the financial ruin of so many Americans through, the federal bank schemes and the banking schemes in general, the bubbles of the burst, the LIBOR just a few years back, the bank bailouts, the predatory lending when it came to the housing market. Of all the things that are so inherently wrong here and devastating human lives, they want to focus on a song, a Christmas movie. Really, is this what we've come to as a society? so much orchestrated outrage over bullshit. I mean, in the grand scheme, I mean, we got problems with our political process. We have problems with corruption in our political process, in our courts, and people that are living on the street. How many thousands in California right now homeless? How many potentially millions across the United States because of financial issues that are homeless? And these idiots want to focus on taking care of immigrants first. They want to focus on erasing history. I mean, look at the unhinged left and Civil War monuments. Look, the Democratic Party has tried to erase the racist past. Almost everything that left media today pushes is division. You have feminists that are targeting males because they hold the door open for a female because that's supposedly about control. Excuse me. I was brought up by grandparents. I was brought up by a generation that held doors just because it was the right thing to do. It was a courtesy. It was a nice gesture. But just because these asshats want to suggest that there have been some men that may have used that for that purpose, that all men do it? Hello. I mean, look at these examples around you. Yeah, is there hatred? Of course there is. It's part of human nature. Okay, but I'm sorry. A skin color does not insulate you from the ability to hate. But if you listen to the left liberal loons and left liberal media at this point in time, if you're white, you're automatically a racist most times. And, if you're black, brown, Asian, something else, it's impossible for you to be racist. It's impossible for you to hate. What kind of stupid shit is that? I'm not sure what I'm more angry with. The ones that believe this stupid shit or the ones that are spouting it. Because, I thought people were more intelligent than that. I'm no rocket science. No rocket scientist at all. But I know how to look at different things and ask questions in my own head and try to sort things out for myself. Today, it's like people want somebody else to think for them. Look, it's not hard to logic. People are out there, come on, for God's sakes, look at just the past few months of supposed news. Look, people, journalism is gone, okay? Going back to morality versus immorality in journalism, all right? Your moral journalist more or less tries to cover all the pros and all the cons, and they do it in such a way that doesn't lead you to a conclusion. They let you, as an informed person, make up your own mind. The immoral ones behind most of it today, it's not about providing you with all the pros and cons and letting you make up your own mind. It's all about framing. It's all about the words used that, tell you what something is rather than giving you the evidence to show what it is or allow you to figure out for yourself what it is. It's not journalism. There are a lot of immoral people in a lot of places today. And really, these idiots that want to focus on, look, I'm sorry, but I just Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, for fuck's sakes, pardon my French. Again, of all the things wrong in this country, you're going to focus on that. Really, are you? It looks that way. But see, this is the other thing. When you have one group in control of media, especially, that means, and they are immoral, that means they are spewing rhetoric and agenda to manipulate the public. The best test, the best test to figure out if it's really a problem or not, especially with this shit. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, talk with some of your neighbors. You're out in the store, ask them what they think about it. Probably a lot of them don't even know. And when you tell them, they probably kind of look at you like, what? Yeah. Because you see, again, what most people seem to forget is the majority is typically silent. Okay? The ADL, all the way back as early as 1940, did what they called book stifling and platform denial. Look at what they just did recently with Kid Rock because of his opinion towards Joy Behar. I got no love for that woman either, nor The View. I don't watch it. I've only caught it a couple times in passing because somebody else had it on the TV and I just looked at the crap being spewed there and was like, what the hell? Again, of all the things to be up in arms about and upset about, they are so shallow, superficial, it's not even funny. But going back to where I was going with Kid Rock, he ended up doing what he did, just an honest opinion, and right away he's being, he was shut down with some different things. I forget exactly what it was, but something that he was supposed to be doing or going to, and all of a sudden he ain't going anymore. Well, hello, that's denying people of a platform. And the same minds that were behind it back during the 1940s, as early as the early 1900s, the same minds that were behind it then are behind it today. They just changed their names. Socialists and communists were like that. And then you had, Zionists manipulating the Jewish population doing it. It's the same minds. Now they call themselves progressives and liberals. They just change the names. And once people get wise to progressives and liberals, they'll change their name again. It's the way they do it. Always trying to stay hidden. When they push the envelope too hard, that the people end up getting upset, agitated, and they start pushing back, and sometimes, that other side gets a bloody nose here and there. They kind of go into hiding because they're like cockroaches. And they keep on teaching our kids. School is supposed to be about educating young minds, not indoctrinating, not, opinion. But if you're older like me and you remember what you learned in school, and then you have kids and you start reading their textbooks a little bit, and you start seeing what they're saying to them and how things have just, there's the little nudges. It's no wonder to me why today the kids are running headlong at democratic socialism. They have no idea what the hell it is. They have no idea of the bloody history of it. And again, at the end of the day, we're still back to morality versus immorality. And if you look at the attacks on morality, it's the same damn thing. When the church got involved with things and tried to guide morality, it was usually the older people in the church, older people like me. Not to say I'm in the church at this point in time. That's another story. But it's always the idea that, somebody's a dinosaur, that, oh, you're just resistant to change. No. Maybe it's just we're older And we realize there's some things that just really need to not change, because when you allow certain things to change, you start looking at the breakdown of moral fiber. The thread starts to unravel and unwind, and things start to become radically different from anything that you know. But the young ones, of course, just like us, people like me when we were younger, we kind of thought we knew it all too. Well, I'll tell you what, the amount of stuff I didn't know. But that's what age, maturity, and wisdom gets you. You start to realize different things that you thought you knew. And then you find out other things when you go digging a bit. You didn't know as much as you thought. Look, again, and to wrap this up, because it's already going on 30 minutes long. If you're going to come up with a solution that is devoid of any consideration for morality versus immorality, and if you are young to the point where you don't see the changes of that throughout time, and the things that are now morally acceptable today that were not, and maybe shouldn't be, any solution you offer that does not take that into account, and it does not take into account how an immoral person might use it at a later point, it's not a solution. And believe me, the immoral people out there that are out for things for themselves, they're going to keep on pushing the decline in morality just so that people accept their view, so they can justify what they do. That's not ever going to stop either. So really, what might be okay in the hands of some morally upright person today might not be so good in the hands of an immoral person later. And it's something that people really need to start considering. Anyways, just some stuff for you guys to think about again. Take care.